Ciao, travelers. Welcome back to season 2. So excited to be back. And today we are going to answer the question of who owns Antarctica. And what we mean own is as we see the definition of a nation, a country. For example, the United States. Okay. So before we get in, we're going to do our trivia. And a little trivia. This is my second video because I let Puffin up here and Puffin dropped the stand and the light where I record this, so it was too long to upload. But anyway, we're back and resilient. Okay, a little trivia time. In terms of land area, what is the largest country in Africa? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's Algeria. I've been here with one of my best friends, Camille. And I got tickets like half the price. It was online for probably 100 and we got it for 20 euros. Leonardo da Vinci's Last Supper mural is displayed in what city? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, Milan, Italy. That really highlights that if you research local, you can save a lot of money. And last but not least, I watch a lot of British shows and they always say this, and there's like other words I have to Google. What is aubergine known as in North America? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, eggplant, which I just had some tonight. Okay, if you hear meows in the background, that's Puffin trying to get into the podcast room. So just go with it. So Antarctica I saved to be the last place that we discussed. I was thinking I was going to make another episode, but I didn't for the first season. So now it's the first episode of the second season. And this second season, we're going to go into more questioning and detailed, kind of like some questions that listeners and viewers have. So please, let me know in the comments, DM me, and I'll be happy to explore. So Antarctica is the southernmost continent, and it's home to the South Pole, and it's nearly twice the size of Australia. But there's one thing, no one lives there permanently, just scientists. And there are no native people, no cities, just researchers living in temporary stations. The discovery of Antarctica is attributed to several explorers from different nations, but no single person is credited for discovering it in the modern sense. Instead, it was a series of sightings and landings in the early 19th century that revealed a continent's existence. Back then, exploration was a nationalistic pursuit. Countries raced to plant their flags on unclaimed land, and Antarctica was seen as one of the last frontiers. Before 1961, 7 countries made 8 territorial claims in Antarctica, south of the 60 degree south parallel. 7 countries, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all right, is Argentina, Australia, Chile, France, New Zealand, Norway, and United Kingdom. So these claims overlap in some areas. Recognition of the claims exists mainly among 5 countries, UK, France, Australia, New Zealand, and Norway, whose claims do not overlap and are mutually acknowledged. Funny thing is, those countries were either British rule, for example, New Zealand was under, and Australia under United Kingdom, or in Europe. So they really excluded Argentina and Chile, which you're going to see there's a lot of tension, especially between Argentina and United Kingdom. All right, so this is a really interesting claim, and it really talks about the law and treaties and how it might be written one way and perceived a certain way, and then going forward, you can claim that and be like, oh, I could take this from it. So Argentina and Chile argue that the historical grant shows that Spain had an intent to occupy the Antarctic region through various treaties. So from 1539 to 1555, various treaties, which included all land south of the Strait of Magellan, were claimed to be the Spanish Empire. And even though they didn't know the land existed. They said anything south of that was the Spanish Empire. So they thought it was just ocean, but it actually extended to Antarctica. So they're saying that that is their intent to occupy. Modern day Spain, however, does not recognize this, but they do have two scientific bases there. So then this is the contention between Chile and Argentina. They had long-standing and competitive presence in Antarctica, rooted in early efforts to regulate maritime activity and assert territorial claims. Argentina began issuing fishing and whaling licenses in 1893, prompting Chile to implement its own fishing rules, and by 1906 to authorize settlement beyond southern Shetland Islands, moves that Argentina opposed. However, Argentina had already secured a permanent presence by 1904 by acquiring a British-built meteorological station on Laurie Island, later developing it into Arcadis Base, despite British objections. Diplomatic efforts between Chile and Argentina in 1906 to 1907 to divide the region failed, leading both to establish unilateral claims. Chile in 1940, referencing historical Spanish colonial rights, and Argentina formalizing its claims by 1946. Britain, concerned about wartime threats and competing claims, responded with Operation Tabern in 1943, establishing bases and reasserting sovereignty. After the war, these efforts evolved into the British Antarctic Survey. Chile, in turn, launched its first Antarctic expedition in 1947 to 1948. Okay, so now we're in the UK. So this is where Argentina and the UK fight. The United Kingdom reasserted its sovereignty over the Falkland Islands in 1833, and those are off the coast of Argentina, later expanding its territory into the South Atlantic and Antarctica. In 1917, the claim was redefined to clearly include the entire sector of the South Pole between 20 degrees west and 80 degrees west longitudes, forming what is now the British Antarctic Territories. So this continued, and the entire Antarctic continent into the British Empire, excluding only the small claims by France, Chile, and Argentina. Otherwise, Leopold Emery envisioned to take the whole continent except for that section. But then what happened was World War II. So everything kind of stayed at a standstill. You also had France and Norway asserting some claims, but those areas and claims are much smaller than the countries we just mentioned. So now let's fast forward to post-World War II. So the United Kingdom and Argentina problems persisted, highlighted by the only recorded instance of shots fired on the continent in 1952 at Hope Bay, when Argentine personnel fired machine gun rounds over British surveyors unloading supplies. An incident later apologized for a misunderstanding. Meanwhile, the United States increased its Antarctic involvement before and during World War II with the government-backed Antarctic Service Expedition. So what they wanted to do was create a base, testing equipment in extreme conditions, expanding scientific knowledge, and asserting U.S. sovereignty over as much Antarctic territory as possible, despite public denials of territorial ambitions. These developments set the stage for eventual move towards an international treaty governing Antarctica. So we're now after World War II. We're now entering into the Cold War, where it was the Soviet Union and allies versus the United States and Western Europe allies. And what happened with the atomic bombs in Japan, now this new idea of nuclear warfare really heightened things and made a lot of tensions. So in order to quell the tensions, this is something where people came together. In 1957 to 1958, the Antarctic Treaty, known as the Antarctic Treaty System, ATS, was established. So there were early attempts, but nothing happened. And until over 70 national scientific organizations collaborated, establishing research stations and conductive extensive study. So key contributions came from Britain, Japan, France, and the US, which built permanent bases, including the Amundsen Scott South Pole Station. To avoid military conflict amid Cold War tensions, the US, UK, Soviet Union, and 9 other countries signed the Antarctic Treaty in 1959, which came into force in 1961. This landmark agreement designated Antarctica as a scientific preserve, guaranteed freedom of research, prohibited military activity, and marked the first arms control treaty of the Cold War era. Future. So, very interesting, and this is the thing with treaties or clauses. The United States and Russia, then Soviet Union, have reserved the right to make future Antarctic claims, while other countries like Brazil, Peru, Uruguay, Ecuador, and Iran have expressed or hinted at potential claims based on geographical, historical, or legal grounds. Brazil's possible claim would overlap with Argentine and British territories, but not Chile's. Peru cites ecological and geological connections, and Uruguay, as a treaty member, reserves its rights under international law. So, in conclusion, Antarctica is really ruled based upon this treaty, the Antarctic Treaty System. So the main goal is to have scientific research while not claiming any more land. That's the key. They're not saying that the claims before were unjustified. They're just saying, moving forward, this is the land and there's no more territorial claims, except for if you're the United States and Russia, if you want to make more clauses and more land and change things. And that's the thing with treaties and laws, they evolve. So the future of Antarctica is very interesting, because as the world gets bigger, the demands grow, climate changes, there's lots of potential in natural resources in Antarctica, and even the seas around it and the ocean, the southern ocean around it. So we shall see what happens. But as of now, it's not a nation and no one owns it. All right, let's get the ball rolling. A little trivia and then we're donezo. Banned on public transport in Singapore, what is the name of the fruit known as the smelliest fruit in the world? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, durian. And one more. I have this in my classroom. From which country does Lego originate? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, Denmark. Well, I hope you enjoyed this first episode of season 2. I'm so excited. And on another note, I have my first single from my next album, Electro Wave, out. It's called Daydream. Please stream it, and I will see you at the next episode. Ciao, travelers.